So this is where we stopped last time, and we just agreed that we just try to come up with the most commonly known, basically based on what we know here in JUC, what is applicable, and then we came out with these type of relationships. You remember this section? We had a discussion about this section, why these two lines, because now this means it is called a weak entity. What is a weak entity?
An entity that is directly related to another entity that can be erased by
That can be, it's an entity that is related to another entity that can be erased, you said? Removed? What do you mean removed? I'm not sure to understand that removed part. Yes, you were saying, you wanted to say something? Okay, it's an entity that cannot exist independently from then as another entity. That's what you wanted to say by if we delete or something like that, right? So it's an entity that cannot live without another one. We cannot have a section if we don't have a course. Let's say I delete the entity course. Is it possible to have a section?
No.
Then the section basically depends on a course. So we need this kind of information to show as this entity depends on another entity, and that's how we show that. We show it in two ways. The first way is to put two lines, double lines in the rectangle. Yes?
What about the course and department?
Okay, let's finish this one. I said the first one, how I say that this is a weak entity is that I should put it like two lines, but I have also to have this kind of identifying relationship, which is referred to here as weak relationship. But I should have at least one, but actually not at least one, I should have one. For every weak entity, I should have one weak relationship, as it's mentioned here, or as I think it's more precise when you call it an identifying relationship. Now this identifying relationship is what you find in the book in the slides, but I like this usage of this word because it allows to say that this section has many relationships with different entities. Now we said that this cannot live independently from another entity. Which one is that other entity that determines this weak entity? Now by looking at this will tell us which one. So I don't have to guess, oh, it should be the course. Yes, no, now I just by putting it like this, I'm mentioning explicitly that the weak entity section is depending on the entity course. Why? Because I have this identifying relationship using these double lines in this relationship. So you have to do that all the time you have a weak entity. Now your question now, you wanted to say that maybe there's another weak entity, right? Which one?
Course and department.
Course and department.
There is no courses, there is department, there is no.
Okay, if there are no departments, there should be no courses. That means the course cannot live without a department, right? Is that true? It depends on the department. So we could have also this course to be a weak entity. Yes or no? I mean, I'm seeing some say yes or no.
Can we have weak entity related to weak entity?
It's possible, yeah, we could have. That this is dependent on this one, which is also dependent on another one. We could do that, yes. Yes?
That's the case. We have to do two weak relationships.
For every weak entity you have an identifying relationship. So you can say that this is related to this one and this is related to the other one. Now I was trying to see whether it's actually a weak entity. Yes, you want to say? To identify the entity to whom the weak entity is dependent. Identifying relationship, yes. the relationship that identifies the entity which this weak entity is dependent on. Yeah. Okay, now the question about this course, as it is dependent on the department, one way to know that is that I cannot identify uniquely one instance, one record, one tuple of a course if I don't have an information about the department. Now let me just take back this discussion to the section. Now the section has an ID, right? A section should have some kind of primary key. The primary key is a number for us in JUC. We use this 101, 102, 103, so things like that. These are the section number. However, one indication that the section is not independent from a course is that when I tell you, okay, this student is in section 101, you will have to ask of which course, right? Now, if I say this course, this student is taking CS101, do you have to ask which department? Because you will not know, oh, there's a CS101 that is in the CS, but there's another CS101 that is in another department. So I don't know which one is which. I need the department to know which course it is. Now in this case, we don't, right? But for the section we do. So this is not just, if you look at it from the perspective that if one is there, I cannot have this without that. I cannot have all of this without a faculty, let's say. Or I cannot have all of this without a student. If there's no student, what's the point to have a course, to have a faculty, to have a department? So this is going to be misleading. But the way how to spot a weak entity is when you try to identify it uniquely, and you find that you need some kind of information, some identification from another entity, then this is a weak entity. So for example, this cs310, the database course, you have the section 101 is from the cs310, and then every section will have a specific course that is associated to. It must have that. Without that, I cannot know just by saying just the section number, the primary key of the section. That is not enough to identify uniquely a section. That's how you spot this kind of relationship, weak entity and the other entity. Now, if it's okay with you, we'd like to go with the other cardinalities and try to come up with those values. Yes, you have a question, Khalid? The what? A weak entity, when you have the primary key, even with using the primary key of a weak entity, let's say now we don't know if this is a weak entity or not. If you have a primary key of an entity that needs another information from another entity to uniquely identify elements of that entity, then this is a weak entity. Like what, for example? But for example, if I tell you, let's say Java 1, this course is called Java 1, right? Or let's say Java 1. Now if I tell you the Java 1 course, do you still have to ask me, okay, which department this course is in? Because it might be Java 1 from MIS, or Java 1 from CS, or Java 1 from General Studies, or whatever. Do you still have to ask this question? No.
Sometimes yes.
How?
Sometimes the course.
When? Can you?
Sometimes the name of the courses is not known by which departments, but like for marketing and like business, they have some related subject that has a name that could be on.
No, I'm not talking that could be based on what you can think. I'm talking about what is actually applied, what is practiced. Now, currently in JUC, are you able? Can somebody tell you a course, and you're not going to be able to know which department is in? Not because of ignorance, but because no, there's other options that are possible. Like for example, if I tell you the same analogy for section 101. If I tell you this student is in section 101, you cannot just stop right there because you still need some extra information. 101 of which course? Oh, 101 of Java 1. Okay, then this student is in 101 of Java 1, which is different if I tell this student is in the course the course Java 1. Well, do you need to tell me, which department is this course in? No, because we know that Java 1 is in the CS. That's what I'm trying to say.
Some courses like business communication. You don't know if it was the business department or the MIS.
Well, this is a program. Now, this is another discussion that basically, like the thing that happens in the business are not shown here. Because, first of all, for simplicity, we just assume that one department is one program. But as you mentioned, now business department is a special case in here because they have more than one program per department. So the department name is business, but they have a program business and a program MIS, and now program accounting, whatever, and these other things that they have now. But this is not what I'm talking about. This is not. We assume now by saying departments is also basically the program that they're in. So the business thing might be a bit confusing regarding to this because it's not really going to fit in this model. Yes.
Suppose that we have if we have something like could have a week also on courses.
Yes.
Courses.
Now imagine that we have week entertain courses. Yes.
Courses and sections. And
Yes.
between them there is a weak relation.
Identify relationship. Yes.
How can we which way go?
You'll have another one here, right?
I will have one.
Well, then, for example, you'll have now this is going to be, let's say, weak entity. This is another identifying relationship. You need another one. You're not going to be saying, because this is showing that this is weak, it is identified by this because it's connected to another weak, and this one is going to be identified by this. There's no other way, because you cannot say that this is identifying by this and then okay, what about the other one? So if I make this to be weak, I will make this also to be double-lined.
So every weak entity could have only
One identifying relationship. I was trying yesterday, as I said, try to think about any possibility that might have more than one, but I think I couldn't think of it. And I think, as far as I know, one weak entity have one identifying relationship. But as I said, the identifying relationship can be connected to more than one entity. No, this is wrong. To more than one entity. I don't. Oops. No. Like something like this. I don't know. Don't look at the content. I'm telling you that the weak relationship or the identifying relationship can be connected to more than one. Maybe. I don't know. But having more than one identifying relationship doesn't make sense to me. So I think it's not possible. All right. Well, good that we cleared that. And now, just to go back to this business department, if we wanted to have that, we should have basically also in the exercise that I don't have here. In the exercise, I should have added program, but I feared that it might add some more complexity about understanding what a program, so I just left it out, and we just stayed with this. Just a department. It's much simplified version. It's not exactly what is happening in JUC, but it's a simplified version of it. Okay, let's keep going now. If you want, can we go for some cardinalities? Now, let's talk about, for example, department and faculty. So, one department can have how many faculty members? One or more. Notice that every time when I start with one department, the cardinality is going to be on the other side. One or more. Can it be zero?
No, one.
You can't have a department without no faculty members. And now one faculty can belong to how many departments? 0? Do we have a faculty not belonging to any department? So it should be 1 or more. That means we can have a faculty that is in the CS and in the MIS as well, right? Is it? Do we have a faculty member that belongs to more than one department?
Yeah, maybe.
Can you give me an example?
We could have a faculty that does not belong to any department.
We could have a faculty member that did not give me an example. Now we're talking about JC. Do you have any faculty in JC that you know?
We didn't say it yesterday. Those who work in the risk department.
Or these are administrators. These are not called faculty members. These are called maybe staff, but not faculty. Because with faculty, as you see, they advise. Do we have advisors as employees? I mean, we're not representing the administrators here. But if we would, then yes, you're right. But this is not the case. Yes.
I'm not sure, but like Mr.
Salih
Saleh and Shahrani,
al-Shahrani. Salih al-Shihri?
yes,
Dr. Salih al-Shihri, yes?
from the research department.
Yes.
Does that count as a department?
Not really. Because does this department offer a course?
No.
Because this is our understanding of this department because they offer courses.
At the same time, Mr. Saleh taught us, was teaching us some courses.
Yes. But still, he's a faculty belonging to this department, the computer science. And, well, he might be in other units, but these are not departments the way we define the department. Now we agree that the department is the department that offers a course, that has a program in it and things like that. So it's not the same thing, yes?
Dr. Asim Ali, I remember.
Dr. Asim Ali, yes?
Used to teach math.
He used to
for
teach
12
math.
years,
Yes.
And he teaches
Okay.
computer science.
Good. That's a good point. We had some kind of faculty members who were teaching other courses from outside of the department. Does it mean now that he belongs to the GS department and the CS? That's not the type of information that we keep here. No, he was not even. When you say it belongs to a department, for example, if we say that he belongs to it, that means his chairperson also is also from the GS. But he's the chairperson of the department. The CS is a chairperson of Dr. Asim, for example. So he did not have, like, for that semester 2 chairpersons. He was still a faculty member of the CS, but he was just borrowed, let's say, to be offering a course in another department. But he was not belonging to another department. I'm sorry? So it just has one. There is no example that you can give me and convince me that there is one faculty who is in more departments, except if you change the definition of department to be more general than just only offering courses. Then if you do that, then you cannot say that every department offers one or many courses. You can say we might have department not offering courses, then yes, you might fill in this kind of definition of the department. And then you can put this many. But be consistent. Because if you say that a department offers at least one or many courses, that means the other research, and they are not considered to be the departments the same way we do consider these ones. I'm sorry? Maybe it's not something. Maybe you can have a lot of different things, a lot of different options. But what do we know is the practice. Is there any course? No. And I can tell you there is no course that they offer. Yeah. Well, in the assumptions you can do that, basically. But I mean, the purpose of this exercise is not to go into all the details, because check the question. Just no details. Just try to make relationships and put some values. That's what's interesting. The exercise is not about getting real and knowing. Actually, I'm not going to assess you on how you were able to take whatever is the practice that was described, and you show it in the model, because that's not the case. I'm not giving you a lot of details. I'm just telling you, okay, just based on what your understanding is, just do this. our main goal is not to go deep into the realistic to see if you really was able to model the situation that was given to you, but just to get used to these relationships and cardinality and these things. So, but the next exercises that we're going to do, week 3, you're going to see there are more. They have more details in them. These are some of the exercises we're going to be doing later on. Okay, this is slow. That's why it's. Okay. So, anyways, you see, these coming up exercises are going to be more detailed in terms of the specifications, and like this one is more. So we're going to add more and more details as we advance. And now let's just go back to this, and basically this is where we are. We can just close this one, and yeah, let's go back to where we were. So now everybody is happy with this. One department can have one or many faculty members, and one faculty belongs to one and only one department. Okay, since we're here, let's continue with the faculty. One faculty can teach how many sections? The minimum? 0. Can you give me an example of 0? But now, are we talking about a faculty teaching a course or faculty teaching a section of a course? So why are we talking about courses then? So how many sections can a faculty teach? Maybe 0. Do we have a faculty that does not teach any course? Even though he's teaching, everybody's teaching. Everybody's teaching. This is the practice. Listen, I'm talking about the practice. Don't talk about something hypothetical that might happen. I'm talking about this is the practice, so we don't try to come up with different. Or maybe in a university they don't teach. Or maybe no, they teach at least 5 courses. We don't care about this. Don't think about the quiz. This is an example. This is an exercise. If you try to follow, oh no, the quiz, what kind of question? That's not going to fit in this kind of things. If it was a quiz, I'm going to give you something more like this than something like what I gave you already. Just a small question. And actually, more details are better for you, so you don't have to guess. Is it that or that? Maybe this one is true, this one is false. When you have details, that's better. So now, one faculty member teaches at least one. Abdurrahman is not a faculty member because he's not an advisor. Again, everything is. Let's try to don't forget what we did. The rest. If you think about some cases, look at if it still fit with the rest of the other relationships are still okay.
Section teach only one.
And one section is taught by
Only one.
One or more.
one or more, or just one.
One section only one. This can't be.
Do you have an example when
One or
we have more? When we have doubts?
Maybe the lab.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, and it happened. Ah.
But this analyze like 2 different sections.
Today this thing doesn't want to. This is a different section.
Yes, I think so.
While
Different section. Different section. Yes. Could be the same. Only one. Could be different.
Every section can only have one teacher.
Yes,
It can be
only one.
2 teachers in the section.
but
Like
now one section it has one faculty member.
But maybe another college. Have
Let's not talk about other colleges.
Last semester we had, I think, 2 courses that have the same section with different teams. So we can have one.
Like what? Which course?
Arabic and discrete one.
No, it's not. That's not the kind of example. What you say is true, but no, that's not the right example. I don't know if some of you got the summer course. In one of the courses, I know some faculty taught the first part, the others taught the second part. Like from week 1 to week 4, let's say until the midterm, there was one faculty, and from the midterm until the end of the semester, there was another faculty. Who? Yes, when there's one faculty who left, yeah. But I'm talking to you that this was planned in the beginning. That was something that happens in the middle of the semester. So yes, even that this qualifies as having one section taught by more than one. So actually,
Only one.
one or many. Because we had a course, I think if I remember, that was computer security in the summer that was taught by 2 different faculty members. Not at the same time, but one taught the first part up to the midterm, the other one from the midterm until the final. No, same course. It's not like a theory and practical. I'm sorry? It is. And also this can, for some courses this can qualify because it's the same section number. Remember that we have section number, but then this is a theory and practical, we have 2 different faculty members. Yes. Yes. That's not the rule. Yes. But it's still possible because if you do something like this, you make it impossible to have this kind of exceptions to happen. That means now every section is only have one faculty. But if you do have this kind of exception, even if it happens once in 10 years, you have to make it available in the database because once it will be required to have these 2 people into that, if your database does not allow it, it will not be able to add it. So you have to, even if it happens only one in maybe 20 years, you have to because it happens once, so you have to take it into considerations. Yes.
And look, it happens one day. Maybe I'm saying someone cover my place. Is it also possible?
Well, I don't know, but anyways, this is not part of. I mean, this is qualified by the teachers. Yeah, maybe. That's possible. Maybe a faculty if it gets sick and then 1 week it doesn't come up and there's another one. Yeah, probably. But let's say, I'm sorry.
Consider about possibility. There is a chance to it happens.
Not always, because if you look at possibilities, you might have a lot of different possibilities. You're going to be putting all different possibilities all the time. Now look at the practice. Did it happen? If then yes, this is maybe didn't happen much often, but it happened. Okay, fine, I'll add it. But if it never happened, and then maybe if this really is highly likely to happen, then yes, I'll put it. But it's not really likely to happen. I'm not going to put it as a possibility, even though it's a possibility. So it's not like always put all possibilities, yes. But what happened, or what I think is 99% will happen, then you do that. But if it's just possibly might happen, you don't have to, because you will be able. With that same logic, you will put a lot of possibilities everywhere. A course can be offered by more than one department, and then faculty depends on more than one department. But it's possible, Allah, and maybe he'll change, and then he comes back, and so this is something that might be more making things not real. If it happens in the past, yes, that's true. You have to put it, because if it happens, it might happen again, even with a very small percentage of possibility. But because it happened, then you put it. Yes.
About the cardinality, like here, there's one here, one or many, and one here. Like
When you say here, do you think I know exactly what you're talking about?
that one under the course, one.
Under the course, this one, okay?
There's only there's also one.
Okay.
How can I differentiate? Like which one?
So when you say one course is offered by one department,
Okay.
and one department offers one or many courses.
Ah. So they are like, together, one from here and one to here.
Exactly. It's always, and when you look from one direction, you don't get mixed up by talking about the other thing. Just one from here is related to how many from there. That's how you find this is the first one. Then you go to the other side, and one from there, how many is related to one from here? I'm sorry? No, there are not. There are no rows. No. No rows. I'm sorry? A rows? If there are rows? Well, we do not put a rows in here. There's no relationship that has one side relationship as far as this model is concerned. Yes. Maybe if you're talking about the class diagram, which is in software engineering, then yes. But for the database models, there are no rows, as far as I know. So we're done with this. Any comments or suggestions or? Questions? The one? Student and the register is a special one because it involves three of them. I'm going to leave it for the last. Right? And then the faculty advises how many students, let's say?
Oh, one or many. Or could be zero or many.
One or many. So one faculty, can advise.
Maybe no.
Is it possible to have a faculty that is not advising anybody?
Could be.
Because if you put one, at least every faculty is advising at least one guy, one student. But that's not the case, is it?
Zero or many.
So it's zero or many. Sorry? Yeah. That means if it is zero, that means that we have some faculty members who are not advising any student.
Like Dr. Gandhi.
Or like me. I'm not part of the advisors. Because now they set just a certain people to be advisors. I mean, but this is might be confusing. It doesn't mean that the faculty, now students come to me and I advise them. It doesn't mean that I'm not advising them. That's not the type of relationship this means. It means now is he the advisor that he appears, his name appears in his timetable. Like this is what the advisor means here in the JUC, right?
Zero or one. Yeah.
So from this side is, and one student has how many advisors?
Zero or one.
Zero?
Only zero or one advisor. Only one.
Every student has at least one advisor. At maximum one. So it's just one. So it's one and only one. Okay, the last before this register thing, one department. Now the special, as you remember, this was about the major.
Yes, mate.
Saying that so this department can have how many students has taken it as a major?
One or many.
One or many?
Zero or many.
Zero or many?
Yes.
If you mean zero, that means there's a department, there's no student is a major. Don't talk about the hypothesis. Hypothetical things, we're not talking about them. Now if we say zero, that means there might be a department, no one has a major in that department. No student has a major in that department. If you say one, that means every department has some students who have taken it as a major. And the prep year are not part of a department. They don't specialize anyway. But we're not talking about student now, we're talking about departments. Now from the student point of view, then you can talk about the prep year. But now we're talking about the department point of view. If a department, does he have some students taking this department as a major?
So in GUC we don't have like a department called the general studies, right?
We do have a department called General Studies. You mean we don't have a program?
Have students that major only.
Exactly, which means
One only?
no, zero or many. That's the justification behind the zero. If we did not have the GS department, then this should have been one, because the rest, all of them, they have some kind of major, that some student that taken it as a major. But because this of the GS department, one department, we have how many departments, but one of them does not accept any majors, it will have to be described here. Now from the student's point of view, one student can have how many majors? Only one? Minimum? One. Maximum? Zero? No. This is not part of what's possible. What's possible in the cardinality, if you remember, let's go back to week 2. We said that in the cardinality we put minimum 0 or 1. The maximum is either 1 or many. It cannot be 0 or many. So it's 0 from the minimum, that can be possible, but for the maximum, I'm sorry? 0, the min, I cannot hear you. Raise your voice, please. I cannot hear you. I cannot hear you. What you saying? What are you saying? You say we used it already? We never put 0 on the right side, because this is 0 for the minimum. Now when I said the minimum, I'm talking about this one, the number on the left side. The maximum is the number on the right side. So this here, what's the minimum? 0. What's the maximum? Many. So the minimum is 0, maximum is many. That's what I'm talking about. You cannot say the maximum cannot be 0. That's what I'm talking about. Because my question was, what was the maximum? And you said 0. That's why I said, no, there's no maximum in the maximum. Maybe you meant 0 at the minimum. So now let's go back to this. One student can have how many majors?
Major? In our case,
Majors.
only one.
One or more? Why one, first of all? Why not 0? Do we have some students that do not have any major? Yes, prep year. The rest, no, that's not a good example. But prep year, yes. Prep year students, they don't have any major yet. So, if you don't put this one here, that means the prep year students are not going to be in the system. Because every time you'd like to enter a student, you will have to mention what's his major. Because you said one, at least one major. So they have to select what's the major. Now if you say 0, that means it's possible we have a student, he's in the list, but he hasn't took any major yet, or selected any major yet. So that's the 0. Now the many.
1.
Now, do we have a student that has more than one major? No, then no. I'm talking about JC, right? So let's just stick to JC, because if you start talking about major, I would talk also about minor. Some have majors and minors. While it's a major, and then within the major you have some other like sub-major. So with the possibilities, we'll never stop. So let's just stop at what we know, what we practice. So 0 and 1. So a student may not have any major because he's in the prep year, or if he has only one. And we probably finished it. We need to talk about this one now. Now for this type of relationships, when you have more than two related to each other, it's kind of not straightforward to find a way how to put the cardinality here. But let me talk to you about one thing. When I put this 0 or many, I'm not putting any restriction. When I start saying this 1, either in the maximum or the minimum, I'm putting a restriction. I'm limiting what's possible. When I say 0 or many, that means it's possible there's nothing, and it's possible there's many. So everything is possible. But when I say, for example, this is 1 or many, that means I'm putting some kind of restriction. At least 1. So it has to be at least 1. At the maximum, there's no restriction. But the minimum I put in a restriction should have been at least 1. Now to be here, when you have such a thing, how are you going to be putting the relationship, looking at this? When we're putting the cardinality, we're looking at one student, and then we say how many from the other side. But now we have two sides. You're not going to be saying one student can register in how many sections without talking about the courses, because it goes about the grades. One student can have how many grades, while it's associated to a section. So when we put these three together, for now, to simplify things, we're going to always do this. In the cardinality, we remove this and we don't put any restriction. And we do something like this. So that's how we're going to be doing it. When you have more than two entities related to each other, we just do not put any restriction and put everything is possible. But we need these three to be together. Yes. So that's what we're going to be doing. I'm sorry? You need to know what?
You need to know how many students can take, how many sections can take, and the grade.
Now, if I do something like this, what is going to be? You need to put a limit. You mean as a maximum?
Yeah, at least how many
How many what?
students, how many sections can take.
Why do you want to go into those details? I mean, is this something that is? necessary to do? I mean, if we don't put these restrictions, are we going to be lacking something? So for now, let's just leave it like this. Later on, we might talk about, okay, I'd like to put some more restrictions, etc. But for now, every time you have more than two that are linked together in a relationship, put them 0 to many, all of them. Now that's going to be the result of this thing. Yes? No, it's not about space, because now these many things is not going to be resulting in any other implication except that it will decide where the foreign key is going to be. So I need to make a relationship. It's just going to mention when the foreign key is going to be. When I put many, it doesn't mean that I'm going to have more storage or something, but this is something else. It's just about the foreign keys, where they're going to end up in. And I'm going to talk about that inshallah in next classes. But now I just would like you to practice this. Whatever we did together, I would like you now to do it alone on these exercises on this week 3. So I'd like you to go to this and start with the number 1 and 2 and 3 as much as you can do in this few 40 minutes or so. And I'm going to put this available so you can just go back to it, or maybe just you can freeze it here so you can see it.
Victor.
Yes.